For years, eyewitnesses have been seeing mysterious upright canine creatures that they cannot describe, and has left many mystery into the world. It is unknown what lurks around into these creatures, but with sketches, drawings, and thousands of accounts, the mystery is. Join us as we talk about Dogman, the most terrifying cryptid in the world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the 10 Tales of Dogman. I do apologize for Sunday's episode, how we weren't able to upload because, unfortunately, the audio for that episode was a bit of a bust. So instead, we are doing this episode tonight on a Wednesday, but you're still getting on Sunday night an episode of the 10 Tales at 9 o'clock as always. So folks, do not feel warmed out, do not feel left out. We have 2 episodes this week, and I can't wait to showcase them both. My guest at this time is none other than Michigan researcher David Keilman. David, welcome to the 10 Tales of Dogman.
Hey, glad to have me. Glad to have you on this show. Whatever, I'm here and here to talk like always, and hopefully it's a good episode. Just one thing I wanted to bring up was the YouTube issues right now with the cryptid world, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about on this show since it's so popular. But I'm sure there's a lot of other questions you want to ask me, so just go ahead and like
thank you,
buddy, and I'll answer it to you.
No problem,
honest,
David.
You know.
Thank you, David. Thanks. Yeah, the YouTube thing, it's pretty wild. I was going to actually mention to a lot of the viewers about what happened with Dogman Encounters Radio. I know that Bigfoot Eyewitnesses Radio was removed from YouTube. I know Vic Cundiff has unfortunately had to make the decision to cancel YouTube out and now put it all on his website. I know it's a rough situation right now. I mean, I was a little leery of doing this show even in the long run because of the new algorithm guidelines. But real quick, if you want to touch base on that, David, I mean, what are your views? What are your thoughts on the whole YouTube controversy surrounding the Dogman or the cryptid world, as you mentioned?
Right, it's like they're almost censoring the truth. Like the more you're getting noticed and more views you have and the more popular you become, that's the shows are cutting out. It's not the little tiny YouTube shows with 1,000 viewers. It's the ones with 50, 100,000. They're picking on the bigger ones that are making waves, for the government because people are, hey, is this really going on? Is this, and it's getting back to the authorities, the FBI, CIA, all the people are starting to hear this. Well, they have power over the YouTube because who owns YouTube? They're connected to the government. Google, and Google has been monitoring searches for a long time and editing them to say you put in Dogman this and that. It don't come up like it used to. Okay, you have to actually search differently because they changed all the Google settings. Well, that's the same people with YouTube. So we're going to have to get together and make our own cryptid YouTube that we can share whatever we like, and we'll have our own video hosting site. I mean, we can't be fake news because we're real. That's what they're trying to say, is that we're reporting fake stories and all this stuff. Well, maybe some is, because we don't know, who tells the truth and who lies when he goes on these shows. And, so there's got to be some kind of place where they can put them, where they can't take them off, where our people that have these interviews feel safe, sharing information and sharing their stories, where they know it's going to be out there and they're not going to remove them 3 months later. We got to have a safe place to do this. So even the Vimeo is better, and what was the other one we were talking about the other day?
Daily Motion.
Daily Motion. So, those are ones where they don't remove your video. So maybe when I make stuff, I'm gonna start uploading it to all the other sites besides YouTube and sharing them from all them other sites, because I'm seriously thinking about not sharing anything on YouTube and just uploading it somewhere else. I can upload YouTube and make my own YouTube, and they won't be taken down unless they shut the whole site down. So that's another thing you got to deal with. But all I'm saying is there's got to be a place to educate people about cryptids. There has to be, somewhere where we're not being censored, where we can say whatever we like. This is America. We're not supposed to have this happen to us, but unfortunately we are. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll make it brief because, I don't really have a lot to say on it, with the exception of the fact that it is indeed, you are right, it is a controversy at best. But unfortunately, without the knowledge of our domains, of how we use and work our technology, it'll be a little impossible to go ahead and make... I would love to see, don't get me wrong, I would love to see a cryptid YouTube or a platform like a website that could be made to put on our own nature of what we do here. Unfortunately, however, with time and a budget and trying to find the right resources, it might not happen until another few years to another 5 years. We may not know along down the road. I'm not saying that it may never happen, but with how it is trying to get somewhere nowadays with this type of stuff, especially with a topic so controversial like this, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show was to simply discuss the topic of, well, what is the unknown? What is the existence of these mysterious phenomenons? It's very out of my reach with the content I provide, but it is interesting stuff to look up. Come on. If you cannot tell me that someone does not enjoy looking up stories of the paranormal and the Loch Ness Monster and find it intriguing, and just say it's a waste of breath because of the possibility that something like that may exist.
Right. We gotta open our minds, and you can't be closed-minded about everything that supposedly exists through science. There's science, natural and supernatural, like I've said before, but technology makes things supernatural. Like say, all the things they were teaching on Star Trek years and years and years ago, we laughed at it, and now half of them are things we do. So it's just technology.
Very interesting.
Everything evolves eventually through technology as well. So, isn't it, what if we have technology 100 years from now, they could teach monkeys to talk? Just think about that kind of stuff. There is going to be technology like that, and you're going to be able to manipulate brains and DNA and all this stuff they're talking about now that the government's doing, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be out there in 100 years. Maybe they'll shut off the aging process and people live forever until they have an accident, or, anything could happen. It's science, the limits are endless. Don't think that the supernatural is not natural, because it is. It's just we haven't figured it out yet, and we haven't did put that puzzle together, for our minds to comprehend. Like the other dimensions and all that. That's all part of science, and it's been proven. Our minds just don't comprehend it all yet. That's exactly why we can't understand, why some people see ghosts and some others don't see ghosts, and, they could be at the same place and one will see it and one won't see it, or one will feel it and one won't feel it. It's a matter of who has opened their minds and more, just like the teachings of Buddha and, the shamanism and all that. They enlighten themselves, they call it enlightenment. Well, some people are enlightened naturally, like through, just some kind of gene they have in them. And I think those people are the ones that have more sightings with cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman ghosts, all that's related to that, to me.
I agree with that statement as well. Well, David, we can go on this forever talking about this type of stuff. It's very fascinating information, but of course, on realms to, of course, the Dogman topic, let's dive into it, man. Let's dive into it. So David, just so everyone's pretty clear with who you are and what you do, Can you give us a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit of a bio on who you are and how long you've been with the field.
All right. Well, first of all, I was a sociology student in college, to psychology, sociology, biology. So I was always interested in that stuff. And then I moved up north here from the Detroit area after my education and my Marines was over and all that stuff. I was in the Marines for 4 years. And then about 93, I moved up here from the Detroit area to mid-Michigan, which I call Osceola County, Dogman Central here. And, there's three main counties where most of the Dogman sightings have been in Michigan. And I'm close to all three. I'm like in the middle of them. There's like Mecosta, Lake, Osceola, and some in the northern county up above us. But I saw a dogman in 1994 after I came up here. I was driving to work, and you may have heard the story on Big Kunda show on Dogman Encounters 5. People always ask me, they say, hey, what happened? I was driving to work, it was barely getting light out, and I was going to get coffee, like I always did before work at the gas station that's right past work. And a large creature ran across the road in front of me in my little Chevette, and I was the only car on the freeway that I could see in either direction at that time. It was just hard to believe. It's a little two-lane highway, US 10 in Reed City, and this creature, it ran across the road, but it had ears and a snout, and I don't remember seeing a tail at all on this creature. And I said, man, I must have just saw a Bigfoot or something. And then when I start looking into it, I see this local phenomenon around here, the Dogman, Michigan Dogman, and Steve Cook and all his stuff. And I start going, wow, there's something to this. So I really got interested. It wasn't until about 7 or 8 years ago that I got on Facebook that I started spreading the message through Facebook. And going through the big community first, and then making my own dogman groups, or joining every one I could find. And since then, we've grown a long way, and I've made some enemies and made some friends along the way. But sometimes you got to make decisions, that aren't popular with everybody, and it's what's good and best for yourself. You got to, after all, these are my and my friends' groups. We're not out there to please everybody. But I'll get back to the sighting. When I saw the dogman cross the road, okay, it went to the other side of the road. It stopped there. It turned back around, and it had crossed the road in 3 steps, a 2-lane highway, and it was like about 7 foot tall, maybe about 330 pounds, maybe. But definitely didn't have a tail. It was brownish, like a Bigfoot color, almost like an auburn brownish. I don't know how, a couple of different colors in there. But the eyes, I really didn't, there wasn't glowing eyes. It was more like they were just normal, they weren't glowing, but they were very, very, you could see the eyes. And it definitely wasn't a person in a suit. I just had, it just went through my mind, wow, what did I just see? Everything. I never believed in no dogman, back when I was young. But we always thought about Bigfoot. When I was a kid, I'd always go walking around the woods in Isabella County, which is not too far away from here, maybe a half hour. And I would have things happen to me, rocks thrown in the water, but I think that was Bigfoot, but I don't really know because I never really saw it when I was a kid. I just thought things were following me in the woods, and, I thought it was kind of different, But after that, I really got interested in dogman research, and I didn't never call it research. I call it going for a walk, and in areas where things have happened. I've had personal things happen, and others have had personal things happen. There's a lot of things I know that's not on the internet from local people that don't want to be on the internet, don't want their name out there, don't want anything known, and some of them even died. So I have that knowledge of what they told me and where this and that in Michigan here. I know personally of over 300 to 400 sightings just in these 3 counties in the last 20 years. So it's something that they report to the police, and the police don't even come. They just write it off like, oh, okay, all right. Like they're, but how can they do that for hundreds of people? There's something to it. They're not coming to investigate. After that first time seeing them, I knew something was out there, So since then, 23 years now, I've really been into going to tracking at night, or going out in the woods at night and going walking around and just observing, and trying to see what I could see and try to be as respectful and as quiet as I could be and not interrupt any, wildlife that's going on. Just kind of blend in myself. But I think the Marines helped me with that aspect of things. Like I know how to really walk stealthily through woods. I don't really make a lot of noise. I'll pick my feet up. There's a way to walk in the woods, and there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And animals know, if you're just walking through the woods and making a bunch of noise, hey, that's whatever. But if they're used to it all the time, it's just a normal sound in the woods for them, The second time I saw Dogman, this is really exciting. I shared it on Dogman Believer site the other day. It was called The Vanishing Dogman. And this is why I got into the paranormal aspect of researching, Michigan Dogman and all that stuff. It's because I was in my shed thing. I call it a shed. It's like 10 by 12 little building out in this little plot of land that I had planted apple trees and pears and peaches, and corn every year grows, and tomatoes grow back every year, and it's a plot of food plots because I feed the food chain. So whatever comes to eat the food, maybe that gets ate into. I've seen bears there. I've seen cougars there. I've seen a lot of wildlife there, and it's still there in Osceola County, but it's a little flooded this year. Got kind of whacked by the floods. They're pretty bad. I've only been able to get out there one time this year, and I got to walk. It's like 3 miles through the woods. So I call it my bug out area, my research area. That's one of them. But I don't really own the property there. It's like it's a state land, but no one goes there. I mean, they don't log there. They don't. It's It's kind of like I just put a shed up. That's all I did, really. So I don't know what they could say about that, but it's a hunting blind to me. And there's lots of hunting blinds on state property up here, so that's all I'm going to say. It's a hunting blind. But I was sleeping there one night, just fell asleep because I was asleep, and then wake up the next morning ready to hunt in the blind. I'd go there at like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was bow hunting that morning. And I woke up about 3, 4 in the morning. It was making noise, a bunch of coyotes howling, and there was a bunch of racket outside the shed. And I come out there. I was sleeping on a little cot, and I opened the doors because they kind of swing open. They don't have a normal door. They kind of swing, like a shed, like they swing open. And out there was 3 small creatures, coyote-like creatures, but a little bigger maybe, and one standing up on 2 feet. And this was about 6.5 to 7 feet tall, and it had a really long tail, like Vic Cundiff's profile picture. And it was blackish, more blackish, with a little bit of white on its chest. And it was staring me down, just kind of sitting there in a pose like, okay, what are you doing here? And these other ones are howling. It's just being silent. And all of a sudden, it made a noise, and they all quieted down, and they all backed off from the shed. And then it started walking towards me, and I got spooked. And I grabbed a .22 and shot it up in the air. And because my pulse was racing, my mind was racing. What's coming at me? And I knew it was coming at me, and I was just trying to get it to go away. I did not want to take it on, fight these 4 things, because it would have been the end of me. I knew it. And so I fired it in the air, and as fast as I could see, it like went from a solid to a see-through, almost like a ghost, and then it completely vanished, this creature. And it was only like 30 feet away. I mean, there's no way I could just mistake it for anything else. There was hardly any trees around that area where it was standing, and the other ones were on the trail. They just ran off. So I don't know if they were coyotes or what, but they didn't disappear. They just ran off in the southerly direction. But it was just really spooky, and then I had to come to grips with myself, what just happened, but I'd never thought that I would, ever have anything like that happen. It was really spooky. But that happened in about 2009, 8. I thought it was later, but I was checking the dates, and when I always give dates, I'm always off, because I don't keep track, really. I don't really write it down. I just kind of keep track in my head. Well, in my head is not always right. I mean, what happens is right, but not the time, exactly what month, but, it's a matter of what I remembered, because I didn't write it down. Well, after a while, I started writing it down. I mean, that was a few years ago. And that became part of this book that I've been writing and writing and writing and writing. Well, I think I'm going to end it and have a part 1 and a part 2, because part 2 is really starting to become active, which is recently. And when I was staying out in the Luther area, the Tustin area out there, where they call it Luther Days, and that's where Steve Cook was talked about. I was staying out there in the trailer this winter and spring, and I just would get really bad feelings all the time, like something was around, ghosts or Dogman or whatever. It was just a creepy feeling all the time being out there. And I was really glad when I moved back to town, because I went for a walk there one night, and it was really, really scary. I got the shit scared out of me out in the woods there by something I can only describe as like a googway, and there was another creature there as well. It was the first time I ever saw 2 at one time. But I followed the one, and I kind of followed the one, the smaller one, and then when I ran up on this big one, and I blacked out, and I didn't feel good for days, and I don't know what happened really, but I managed to get back to the trailer after seeing this creature, and then I had to process what happened after, because my memory was like freaking ruined for a minute. I just couldn't. It was like I was stunned. I couldn't remember anything that was going on, and this was recently. This was this year, and I didn't feel good for like 3 or 4 days in a row. So I don't know if you want to call that infrasound or getting zapped or whatever you want to call it, but that's actually happened this year, and I didn't really realize what it was like, but now that it's happened, I'm just a lot more leery about going out in the woods and doing this type of stuff, because I got my son all the time. He's 8, and my girlfriend, and I just been trying to just hang out at home mostly. Only go 2-tracking once in a while and stay in the truck. And this year I'm trying to be a little smarter. It seems like they're a little more scary to me right now, But that's basically all 3 encounters broken down small. Do you have any questions about what I said, or?
Well,
Hello?
the thing. Well, I just want to go off and say thank you for serving the country. First of all, that's an elite honor. Thank you for serving the country. Thank you for being a Marine. Secondly, You mentioned earlier about with police how they disregard majority of the encounters. Do you think that there's more to that theory of them covering up, as we all hear all the time? Now, I know I'm kind of taking a gamble with that question, especially from how I'm progressing with it, but my point is that you mentioned how, like, if the police do keep things covered up, they do keep things on a small leash and on the DL. Do you think that purpose is to prevent mass hysteria, or do you think there's more to it?
Yeah, it could be both. There's I don't know if people would have mass hysteria if they said, "Hey, a werewolf type creature exists," but I think what they're connected to, other, otherworldly beings is the only way you could say, like different dimension. If they can go to a different dimension, wouldn't the military be really interested in that technology, how they do that, and try to get that creature and see what's in them and see how they operate so they could do that, because that's what our governments do. They try to get any advantage they can on the enemies. Well, that would be a big advantage to be able to zap into another dimension, wouldn't it?
I do agree with that, actually. Yes, you are. I will stand by that because that is a good theory. When you had your first encounter, how long did the encounter feel? I hear all the time that there is this stance where it's not like being hypnotized, but you feel as if the encounter feels like it's more than like 3 minutes long, but it's actually just like a minute. How long did you feel like the encounter was?
The first one was probably 90 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes. Everything was in slow motion, it seemed like, and you can remember every detail because it was so unreal that it was so unreal to me that time just slowed down. It seemed like 10 minutes went by in a minute and a half. I'm not even kidding. And by the time I pulled the car over and looked over, it was already gone. So it was really only a minute and a half or whatever, but it wasn't in a hurry. It surely was not in a hurry. And it just kind of looked back at me and gave me a really weird look, like a strange, like I don't even know how to say it, just scary look, and looked at me like, yeah, I'm here. And I tell you what, that 90 seconds felt like 10 minutes. You are right.
When it comes to the whole controversy that some researchers, especially in the Bigfoot world, feel that these are actually more aggressive Sasquatches, your analysis on that, because when you mentioned how it felt like it was like a Sasquatch encounter when it came to Encounter 2 to an extent, from when I remember speaking to you with, and even now, what do you think it is when people get the Sasquatch and Dogman mixed up? Like, do you think that these are just similar creatures of the same ancestry, or two separate creatures as a whole?
Well, there's Bigfoot, of course, and everybody pretty much knows what they look like and what they do. But there's offshoots of Bigfoot. There's the Gugwe, which has a snout and ears, which is maybe what I saw, the last time, or they call them the fathead soldier type, which it could have been one of them, I guess, because I really don't know the difference if there is one. They call that the type 3. You can hear my notifications on my phone, sorry. But every time I do something on Facebook, it goes off on here. I don't know why, but I guess I'll get off there. But the Gugways are an in-betweener, and then there's the regular Michigan Dogman with the long tail, and like the second one I saw that I believe. But the first one I saw, I don't believe was a true Dogman, to be honest with you. It didn't have a tail. I mean, it was more Bigfoot-like than Dogman-like, to be honest with you. And it's an in-betweener to me. It's almost like not a Gugway, but a in-between a Bigfoot and a Dogman. So was there manipulation going on, and were they mixing things and back in the olden days, thousands of years ago? Probably. And are there 3, 4, 5 races of things running around in North America? Yes, there are. And there's many more than that. If you look at all the Native American legends, the skinwalkers, Thunderbirds, there's all kinds of things that exist in this other dimension, that humans can't get to right now, but every once in a while they come to our dimension. I would think that's a lot to do with ghosts, you know. It's the same type of thing. But a lot of people say, oh, they're all flesh and blood. Yeah, maybe they are when they're alive, you know. But I think there's some dead ones out there that's making appearances that people are saying, to be honest with you, the way that I hear the experiences and what they went through. Because if they were flesh and blood, they couldn't do all those things that they're alleged to do. And the flesh and blood ones, yes, there are. You can find them, but they're so rare, it's retarded. I mean, it would take you 20 years going on the woods every single day just to see one. You know, I mean, unless you get unlucky or lucky, whatever you want to call it. But there is a way to do it. It just takes a long time, and you got to be very persistent and very, 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 very dedicated to it. And there's a reason why my legs are very muscular and my whole body is in shape, and I'm 50 years old. That's because I walked hundreds of miles through the woods in the last 12 years. Hundreds. I call it walk through the woods, but you walk into the woods and then you sit there and you observe, you know, in your areas. That's the best thing to do. But when you go by yourself, it's a little spooky, you know. And I just take like a survival knife, flare gun, simple stuff bone. I'm not really trying to, you know, harm them in any way. It's just I'm just looking at them and trying to see some and interact. But anymore, I haven't been doing it as much. I'll just drive, go on a 2-track and park and roll the windows down and do it that way. It just seems a little safer, even though I don't think you'd be safe in a truck either, to be honest with you. But there's days I disappear and nobody knows where I go. Well, that's where I go. I go to 2 tracks and I go out in the woods and I vanish for 4 to 6 hours every once in a while. But that's how it is.
Do you think that these creatures have the tendency of an intimidation factor on them that give you guys, well, at least us, the humans, the message that says, this is our territory, you don't belong here? Do you ever feel the slight intimidation source of being watched? And do you feel that if you were to have another encounter with one of these creatures, it's 2 questions, but when it comes to intimidation, do you feel that if you were to see one again and it gave you a bad vibe, do you feel that it would chase you out of the woods, or do you feel that this thing would just watch you wherever you go so you don't touch sacred ground to them? I've heard that theory a couple times about their land being sacred, that they are very protective of their environment.
Yeah, and where I walked into last time, I believe that happened. It's a native burial ground area. These big mounds by a farmer's place out there, and it's called Lake Eola Road. It's on the border of Lake County and Osceola County, but there's Indian burial grounds there, and I felt like unwelcome from the time I got there. Like I didn't belong, like I wasn't supposed to be there, and felt very unwelcomed, very. And that's when it happened with the last time when I got zapped, and I guess that's their way of saying, we don't want you here. We don't want you around here looking around, and you know, and I guess that's how they said it through their actions, you know. But I've never had one actually say, oh, I want to, you know, I don't want you here, I don't want you there. They've said things in the past, I remember, like in dreams and blah, 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 but I don't know if that's real or that's just me. So I can't really say what was in a dream, because that, you know, that's kind of just put it out there, you know, a little weird, but I feel like I do get messages every once in a while, and they do help me to go where I got to go and find them. Sometimes, so there has to be something to it.
When it comes to evidence in the field, do you feel that at the moment right now we have enough evidence in the field to say, hey, that's a dogman, not a Sasquatch, not a bear? Or do you feel that we don't have enough evidence out there to say, hey, we don't have enough to tell the whole world that these things exist? Or that we have newcomers who are intrigued by the subject to say, hey, that's not enough proof to say that this is a real creature?
Well, scientists, there won't be enough proof till they have And that's who actually says, hey, this is a proven species. It's scientists like, cryptozoologists, even like Scott Marlowe or, Adam Davies. I mean, they can prove things like that because they actually go and prove, other species of unproven things, and have done it. So, I mean, he found evidence of the orang pendek, Adam, and that's just something because they actually found hair. They actually found and had it tested and found the prints and found where they lived. And, you don't actually have to have a body to prove them. But they'll still say the orang pendek is not proven because they don't have a body. But they do have physical evidence. Now, Dogman, there's been physical evidence tested, but apparently we can't get the result of it, and nobody really knows from Melba, whatever, Melba Kitchum, whatever she did with her DNA, she said it's, it's this, it's that, it's this and that, but she didn't really share her results scientifically to other scientists. So the other scientists are not supporting her. There's a way about it, and there's a way to do it, and there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. Well, she did it the wrong way. So that's not how you prove it. You have to have a group of scientists all agree on it, not just one,
Right, and I do agree with that statement 100% when it comes to that discussion of evidence, and actually a good reference as well. It's interesting to note that when it comes to when we have these encounters with these creatures, do you feel that in any case scenario, there is this whole rumor, and I mentioned it briefly a couple times, of telepathic communication? Do you feel that these creatures have that telepathic communication with somebody that could say, hey, look, I know what you're doing, I know who you are, and going in efforts to the intimidation factor? Do you believe in the telepathic communication and interdimensional disappearance out of the blue?
That's the second one that I saw, made me believe, because seeing's believing, but could that have been a dead one, or spirit of it? But I did wake up for some reason, and something told me to wake up. And it wasn't the howling of the coyotes, it wasn't this and that, because I sleep with headphones on there. And something told me to get up. And whatever told me to get up, if that's telepathic, so be it. But some people are telepathic, and some people are not telepathic. And the ones that are maybe can, get closer to them or feel them or walk towards them when they feel something, when you get them goosebumps all over. A psychic has a good advantage over a person that has no kind of feelings, because they can say, hey, just like how they found dead bodies, and the police actually asked these psychics, and they're actually right. There's something to it, just like the people that feel it, say, hey, they feel this and this and that, and then they see a Bigfoot. It's kind of the same thing, and it's a really similar in thought to me.
Now that you live in Michigan, have you spoken to any residents or anybody in general about if they've ever had encounters, especially in the Michigan? Is it a real popular thing there of the Michigan Dogman? Have you spoken to anybody or any eyewitnesses who may have had an encounter as a researcher?
Oh yeah, I have several friends that are on our group. Jason Tattoo told me about his. He was at Lake Miramichi only 4 to 5 years ago, which is only 5-6 miles from here, and it was actually in his truck when he came back from fishing. It was sitting on the passenger side going through his truck because he had snacks in there and blah 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 blah. And the door was open, and if you look him up, it's JASON TATUU. That's his name on Facebook, because he does tattoos. But he would be somebody to talk to, about his encounter, because it's never been out there. He's never talked about it. And there's a lot of local people around here that have seen Dogman and have talked about it for years. And it's a local phenomenon around here. If you ask half the people around here have they heard of Dogman, it's probably a 50-50 thing, And I'm making it more than a 50-50 thing because everybody I see, I always bring it up. And you know, it's a small town, things get around. But you know, there's not many people in this county. In fact, there's more deer in this county than people where I live. And it's just a middle of nowhere place. You know, that's where we're at. And the people around here, even the Amish, they don't believe in sort of thing. They talk about these werewolves that are around here. Well, they're not werewolves. I mean, maybe they are to them, but even the Amish people I've talked to, which they don't talk about that stuff. I talked to one, and another one was with them, and they shared the story together, and it was pretty amazing. And that was when I was out in Sears. I talked to them. So all around this county, this is going on. If you're a researcher, if you're somebody that wants to discover these creatures, I would say there's no other place besides maybe two that is good as this county if you went to the places I know where to go. I mean, there's some spots where in the summer they'll pretty much always be there. During hunting season, they leave. I don't know where they go, what happens, but when it's hunting season, rifle season, people are all in the woods, they're gone. And it ruins it for a while, like a month or two. And but it's a local phenomenon here in Reed City, Michigan, Everett, Michigan, about this Michigan Dogman, for sure.
You had mentioned that you had heard of Steve Cook, of course, with Steve Cook, the infamous legend of the Michigan Dogman. Have you ever tried to get in contact with Steve Cook?
No, I online I did a long time ago, but then right after he shut his website down because I was telling him about my counter in '94, and he was overwhelmed with so many people coming forward when he made his website, and that he stopped doing it because he had no other time to do anything else. So just became overwhelming for him. So he just stopped doing it. Like if you go to Steve Cook, you know, whatever, MichiganDogman.com, Steve Cook, he might answer eventually. But, you know, I don't know why he stopped doing it. Maybe somebody said something to him, stopped talking about it or something like that maybe. But he became disinterested really fast. You understand what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, it's crazy to think that there is a small, I wouldn't say conspiracy because I don't want to sound too loon, but I mean it could be easily be viewed as conspiracy, but it is a little odd how some of the things kind of go bye-bye real quickly when things are kind of well open to the blue, if you catch my drift. Now, when it comes to the whole Michigan experience, you said that you had visited, or at least around Luther, Michigan, at least.
Yes.
There was an infamous case in 1987 involving a cabin that was brutally damaged by an unknown creature that was reported to be a dog because of the fact that it had claw marks and cane and paw prints. Have you ever visited that site or had spoken to somebody around that area who possibly may have...
Yeah, that was my friend's cousin that I know. That was actually their house, and I went there with him. His name was Rodney Keithley, and that was his cousin. And this was years ago. We went there, 20 years ago maybe, and they said it was a large dog. Well, I don't think a large dog could reach 9 feet up in the air. You know, that's what it did to this little place. And I personally didn't see it, but I would he talked about it to me. I was like right down the street. We didn't have permission to go there. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I ain't gonna go there if I don't have permission, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But you could see it from the road. You know, it's a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Out by Tustin, Luther, like what I said, where I was in that trailer, that's like 5 miles from there. That was this year I was out there all the time.
Do you believe that these creatures can kill human beings?
Can what?
Do you believe that these creatures can kill human beings? As in other words, they could kill people, as you've heard reported some stories of LBL and some
Easily,
instance with.
easily. They could kill us like they're snapping their fingers. Snap your finger and snap your neck. That's the they choose to just try to stay away and not cause waves because they know if they kill somebody and it's found out about that they definitely will have repercussions where the authorities can come or somebody will come and look for them because whatever killed them is dangerous. They know from what bear killings, cougar killings, this and that. This is so around here. Like a bear kills somebody, the DNR goes searches them out and takes them down. Well, I've talked to some DNR around here, and I was out researching one night, and I said, "Yeah, I'm a Dogman Bigfoot researcher," because he pulled me. He came up and said, "What are you doing out here in the middle, 7 Mile where nobody ever comes?" I said, "I'm a Dogman Bigfoot researcher." He said, "Well, you're in a really good spot for it." That's exactly what he said. So what's that tell you? The DNR knows.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the DNR and all of them, they have a great feeling about it following the Wisconsin Beast of Prey Road. When you conduct your research, what is the main perks you look out for? In other words, when you speak to an eyewitness or when you're out in the field, what is it that you're looking for? What is your main ambition besides obviously finding one walking upright? Do you look for stool? Do you look for hair samples? Do you look for paw prints?
I don't record evidence, but I look for it. A lot of times I won't even take my camera with me, or I compile all this for myself, really. But I have been where I take a phone and this and that. Okay. All right, get it. Hang on. I think UPS is here for me. Yeah, hang on 1 second. But anyway, I have had where I've found footprints and all that kind of stuff. Get that, Ian? I got a big monitor in the mail. Sorry, y'all. But anyway, I have found things, and I have a few pictures, but I'm reluctant to share them because people, there's nothing in there, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to argue over it. It's going to be released when I release it, whenever. But I'm not out there to get evidence for others. I'm not even interested in that. I don't even care about everybody else. They can go earn what I know. And that's, you got to go out there and do it. You can't rely on others because they're not reliable. You got to rely on yourself and your own self-teachings. If you rely on others, you're going to get things wrong, and you're going to be in a hurry. Take it slow, take it careful, and do things the right way. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't be going out in the woods looking for Dogman if you've never been in the woods in your entire life. If you're not a fisherman, hunter, somebody that's not like that, you're going to be in big trouble if you do come across something like that, because they can tell when you're scared, and they sense fear just like dogs. All animals can sense fear. Well, these aren't quite animals, but they sense fear, and they know when you're afraid, and they know that people are dangerous when they're afraid.
That is true. Like any other animal, or in general, even if they weren't, or more of, or you could say of an unknown, they have the instincts. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to go off and ask you about your book, which you've mentioned. This book. Now, tell us a little bit about it, and tell us where we could find it, when it does officially do come out, where we can get a hold of it, and of course, what we're going to see in it.
Well, it's going to be a part 1 and part 2. I'm just going to cut it off at 14 chapters, and I've been filling up the chapters even more and more and more with more local knowledge, more sightings, and it's actual witness testimony from my friends here that's never been on the internet. It's introduction to myself. Chapter 1, chapter 2 is and M.K. Larson's maps and all the details of where they were, here in Michigan. It's not the entire world's in there. It's just Michigan, and then her videos are also in there of Michigan. and it's called Dogman is Real, and it's a cry in the night, but it's all about Michigan Dogman. I really don't talk about, the sighting in Ohio or a sighting here. It's all Michigan, 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 and it's all true. It's everything in there. There's no bit of fiction. Everything is word of mouth, firsthand, from people I know or myself, and it tells a lot of things in there that have happened to me over the past 20 years. It's basically a journal that I had to edit and fix all the grammar, and so there'll still be a little bit of punctuation mistakes and dots here and there, like I'd always write, and that's okay, because I put out 3-4 chapters and people seem to enjoy it. So I've been, working on the other 10 and completing them, and it took a long time, and it's a labor of love, and to me it's never going to be good enough, but I'm sure I could release it, and 14 chapters will go on where you could download it. But Jody Cook wants me to get it on paperback, and he gave me a bunch of information on how to do it, and so I'm probably going to go ahead and do that, but I just have to complete it. There's a few little tiny things I want to get, and there's a few, I need a few more artists to come forward to help me as well, like with a few things. I would like some illustrations for my book, but that's about it for me. I'm going to release part 1 and part 2. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to continue working on part 2 and release part 1. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, David, I cannot wait when you release everything, and I would love to read it all because I'm a big fan of your work, and of course I admire what you do. And I couldn't thank you even more for coming on the show tonight. I'm glad you came on, and I'm glad you discussed your stories to the public as well. And I want to thank you again for coming on the show.
No, you're welcome. No problem, bud. No problem.
Well, folks, I will leave you some information in the description down below of David. I mean, David, do you have any contact information, or would you like to be contacted in general, if you would like, where people can reach you if they wanted to report an encounter in Michigan, if they're in the Michigan residence?
KeilDave 56 at gmail.com. That's Kyle, like Keil, Dave, Dave 56 at gmail.com. And also we have a thing going on, Dogman Believers website. It's almost 5,000 strong, and then there's the other groups, of course. There's Dogman X, and then Minnesota, Pennsylvania. There's all of them. But the main thing to remember, if you have an encounter, don't be afraid to come forward. Don't be afraid to tell somebody. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I see people are leaving some of the groups because we're talking about killing. We're not talking about killing. We're talking about defending ourselves. There's a big difference. So I haven't had to do that, thank God. But the best way to get a hold of me is on Dogman Believers Only website, Facebook site. And then after that, I'm going to try to have some kind of website for the group pretty soon. So that's what I'm going to do next. Everybody have a good day.
Well, David, thank you again for coming on. And, of course, folks, you know where you can contact David now. David, I want to thank you again, and I want you to have a fantastic evening, my friend. You take care of yourself.
All right, you too.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, as always here at the 10 Tales of Dogman, another story comes, another interesting case. Let me know what you guys think in the comments description down below, of course. And as always, guys, have a great evening. We will see you Sunday.